PD Two Finger here. Welcome to Vape Tales. The first episode of Vape Tales was kind of a silly thing I did, an attempt at trying to be funny. This is going to be much more serious edition of Vape Tales. I wanted to talk about something that recently I noticed. This is kind of just a call to action to encourage the people that are viewing my channel to go ahead and click on the CASA banner. I've provided a link for the Consumer Advocacy for Smoke-Free Alternatives Association because it seems that this is indeed kind of really important that if you're out there and you're vaping, that we need to at least join CASA and take a look there at their calls to action. You can tell your story. All this sort of information compiled in the fight against the trend that's happening in our country to prohibit and ban vaping. Giving the power back to big corporations, the Future of Vaping series that a lot of the popular reviewers had done, where we're going to end up with non-refillable low capacity cartridges, which we certainly don't want that. Now, this story is based out of Kentucky. So Louisville, I'm on Reddit and I see this story, something about an E-Cig and a chaos at a local high school. So I click over and I believe it was WLKY. There was two stations that I looked in. There was WLKY and there was also WDRB. There's a place called Meade County, Kentucky, and they're featuring stories on the news. There was a break-in in an E-Cig story, and you see the reporter, and she's talking about E-Cigs and this business that had opened up. And the entire time when she mentions anything having to do with e-cigarettes, she's shaking her head no. And just like sending out this vibe that this stuff is bad news, And there's another story that, well, the local children have figured out how to utilize these e-cigarettes to get high. And they talk about the local policemen in this high school confiscating one of these devices and discovering that it contained marijuana. But the reporter, when they announced the story, of course, she mentions that folks are putting heroin in the e-cigarettes, which is that even possible? I mean, I've heard of Smack brand ramen noodles, but I certainly didn't know that we had any like Karachi. Like, what are you vaping on? Oh, I got the China White today. I'm waiting on the Mount Baker Karachi shipment to come in. But anyway, recently, I guess it was Friday. This may have been the 21st of May in 2015, there was an incident at the high school. It says an e-cigarette created chaos at a local high school is what the exact words coming out of the reporter's mouth. And then there's a on-the-scene reporter, and he's saying, well, they had ingested, several students were smoking an e-cigarette, and 6 of them had to be hospitalized. And then they bring out the local police officer who, colorful accent, he informs us that indeed the e-cigarette had been laced with liquid oil, an oil form of THC. And so they continue to demonize a local food mart. There was a gentleman by the last name of Patel. You could only imagine his ethnic ties. He was arrested. And they served search warrants at this, looked like a AM, PM mini mart or like a gas station type of establishment. The point being that indeed what had happened was these teens had ingested something along the lines of spice, which is something that has been referred to as synthetic weed initially, and then later referred to as bath salts. You remember the face-eating zombie incident on the Florida Turnpike, and I had done a minimal amount of research. I'm not like a big proponent of drugs or getting high. I'm the type of guy, I'm a little older, I don't play around with that sort of thing. I don't think it's funny, cute, admirable, anything to joke about. I think addiction is a horrible thing for anyone to have to go through, and I certainly don't approve of how this country has kind of fought this war on drugs and locked a bunch of people up, a bunch of people for purchasing marijuana for their own personal use, and now we're legalizing it. It's just, the whole thing just seems to me to be absolutely insane how it's been handled, and ultimately extremely tragic. But I will say that if I was aware of a local establishment selling spice, or children certainly involved with e-cigarettes and being tempted to smoke this sort of thing, because the small amount of research that I did into it pointed towards the fact that this has nothing to do with marijuana. These bath salts or packets of synthetic weed, they may be marketed as, what I read, the effects are completely the opposite of a marijuana experience, where it's much closer to crystal meth or some sort of a bad speed reaction. All kinds of weird heart palpitations, breathing troubles, psychosis, sense of impending doom and terror, people flipping out like the guy on the turnpike. They ended up putting him down. They had 9 bullets or something. He had, did he murder someone? I know he ate their face off. And this is certainly not the marijuana that was going around when I was growing up. So I just wanted to bring that story up and bring attention to it. If you want to click around, it's WDRB is the story. You could type in Meade County, MEADE. I'll just link it, I suppose, but Meade County and then E-Cig. And if you do a video search, you will find there was a couple videos they put out. The specific one that I'm referring to was the 6 a.m. video release. Later on, they revised it a little bit, and they weren't so much demonizing the e-cigarettes. They were a little bit more forthcoming with the information. But the initial report, they kept talking E-Cig, E-Cig, E-Cig. And then later on, they brought up that liquid oil form of THC was verbatim what this sheriff's officer chose to describe as this bath salts or synthetic weed. K2 spice, this type of thing. Absolutely horrible. So, I mean, my only suggestion to you would be aware of what's going on. Maybe you'd want to take a look at some of the more, besides just looking at video reviews for vaping. If you haven't joined CASA yet, or if you're not involved in any kind of advocacy, maybe you owe it to yourself to take a look at the information that is going around, see the other side of it, how vaping is being demonized, and they're attempting to utilize our children as a tool to take our rights as adult vapors away from us, because it certainly does seem to be a very healthy trend in the media. That's one of the straws that they're using in their bag of tricks, is that it's a gateway for children to get into much more harmful and addictive drugs. So it's just something we want to definitely be aware of. And again, I'm going to twist your arm to click on CASA, take a look over there, what's going on, the calls to action, tell your story, whatever you can do, whatever you feel comfortable to get involved a little bit in advocacy. So I apologize for having such a somber Vape Tales. I guarantee you the next one I'm going to do something a little bit more entertaining, a little bit more enjoyable. But I couldn't help but make this video because you hear a lot of folks are more tinfoil hatish stuff, and they sound paranoid about they're trying to take our rights away from us, and this is the future of vaping, is this little e-cig, that's all we're going to have. Well, there may be a lot more truth to that than one would care to believe when you actually start taking a look at what's going on. And then, I thought this was a pretty good example of how the media can twist the truth. And I wanted to just put that out there. So, thank you very much for joining me for Vape Tales, and peace.